Welcome to part 3 of Growing Outstanding Transplants, and today we're going to be talking about potting media. And we generally call the potting media the soil, and even though there may not be any field soil or the kind of soil you would dig out of your garden in it, we do not call it dirt because soil is a resource, dirt is a waste product, so we're going to be referring to it as soil. And the one thing that I wanted to point out to you, I have a mix right here. All soil mixes are not the same. They're generally made up of, and these are what we call soilless mixes, they're generally made up of sphagnum peat moss, perlite, which is a silica material that's been heated up and it's expanded like popcorn, and also vermiculite. And depending on what mixture you have, the mixtures can look a little different. Now we have also potting soils versus seed starting mixes. And seed starting mixes are usually much finer than the general potting soil. And some of the potting soils may have composted wood products in them, and occasionally you will find small stems in there. And for larger seedlings, it's not much of a problem. But when you have very fine seedlings like what you would have with some perennial flowers, it makes it a little bit more difficult to work with, especially when you're trying to cover the seeds over. Now, also, all potting soils are not the same in terms of the fact that they have extra things in them. For instance, some of them will have nutrients added to them, and that will usually be on the bag. They'll give you the analysis of what's in it, similar to what you would find on a fertilizer bag. Also, they may also have what we call mycorrhiza in them. And these are organisms that will, you might say, infect the roots and expand the surface area of the roots, and they pick up water and nutrients, and that helps the plants to grow much better. And not all mixes will have that, but they will generally tell you if they have them or not. Some, as I mentioned before, will have nutrients added to them, and they may provide nutrients for the new plants for 6 to even 9 months, depending on what the brand of the material is. And also, some potting mixes will have moisture control materials in them. In other words, these are particles that will absorb moisture when the soil gets dry, whenever you water the plant or it rains, and they will hold that moisture and then release it into the soil as that soil dries. And that can help you during times of drought because your plants won't dry out as quickly. Some people who are organic growers would also like to have organic seedlings. You may not be able to find them in the local garden store, but if you're going to grow them yourselves, you want to start out with an organic mix. Now, this is a Jiffy natural and organic seed starting mix. So you would think, oh, this should be okay. But if you're going to be a true certified organic grower, what you're going to want to do is get a soil mix that has the OMRI seal on it. It's OMRI, which is Organic Materials Review Institute. And it should be somewhere on the package, which would indicate this would be a soil mix that would be acceptable for organic growers. Now, this one, when it just says natural and organic, it just simply means that the materials in here are sphagnum peat and perlite and vermiculite. These are naturally occurring materials, but it's not necessarily acceptable to use for organic production. So look for the special soil mixes for that. And the best place to go for some of those would be hydroponic stores, and you will find them there. If you're only growing a few seedlings, you can buy a small bag of a mix like this one here. But usually I will grow hundreds of seedlings, so what I normally do is I'll go down to some of the big box hardware stores like Home Depot or Lowe's, and I'll buy the 2 cubic feet bags of these materials. These are less expensive, but another thing that you can do if you want to extend this material is you can add some compost to it. Now, if you have a heavy clay soil and you're making compost, I probably wouldn't use that compost. But if you have a lighter textured sandy soil, you can use that. Or if you have a worm composting bin, you could use that. But we normally would suggest that you put anywhere from 20 to 25% screened compost, and then you can mix it in with one of these existing mixes, and it can save you a little bit of money because you're extending the mix. I have put up to 50% finished compost in large pots, say tomatoes or peppers, without any problem. But in smaller containers, you have to be concerned about structure, and especially if you have clay in your compost, it can become a brick inside the cell pack and the plant is not going to do very well. Another thing that you can do is make up your own mix, and one of the ways you could do that is go online and Google seed starting mixes, and there are a number of formulas out there. Cornell University, another university, have some suggestions, but I've made my own mixes where I have used about a third of sphagnum peat moss and then a third perlite vermiculite, or I might go 25% each and I'll put 25% compost in it. And you can make some pretty good soil mixes on your own if you'd like to do that. So it does save you a little bit of money. You still have to buy the constituents, and if you buy them in larger bags, it's a little less expensive. So you can make your own mixes if you want, but for those of you who don't want to fuss with it, there are commercial mixes out there that you can buy. Now, if you use compost from outdoors, you may find that you're going to have weed seeds germinating in your seed starting mix. And one of the ways to avoid that would be to pasteurize your compost. And what I normally do first is I take the compost and screen it in a fine screen, and then I'll put it in an aluminum pan, and I'll put that aluminum pan with the cover on it in an oven at about 180 degrees for 30 minutes. This will kill the majority of the weed seeds in there and some of the pathogens. And we're concerned about some pathogens like Rhizoctonia, Fusarium, Pythium, Alternaria, Phytophthora. These are all things that can cause a disease called damping off, and that's where your young plants die at the interface between the stem and the soil, and then they just fall over. And many plants will go down very quickly that way. If you're fortunate enough to have some survive, they never really completely recover, because the wound or the area on the plant where it was constricted due to the disease, it normally does not recover completely and the plant is weaker. So these are some examples of things that you can do in having your own potting mix. The soil does make a big difference, and you need to try some out for yourself. I've tried Scott's and I like theirs, and I also like the Miracle Grow mix, so you might want to try those. Some of the smaller or real fine mixes, like this Jiffy mix here, I find them a little difficult to wet. You may want to put some water in them and let it sit for a while so that it'll absorb moisture before you plant your seeds. And if you do it right, you can get some good transplants started. I'll see you in the next video.